Hi, it's good to be with you today. It's good to be with you too. Yeah.
That is good.
Now, one of the things that I miss for summers now is I used to go to school every summer. I would go to a school for the course of study school in Chicago and spend a couple weeks and really had a good time and learned a lot. Got to meet a lot of pastors from not just around the United States, but from around the world there too. And it was a good overall experience. And one of the things I remember about going to school, and within that school there were actually three schools. One was an English-speaking school, one was a Spanish-speaking school, one was a Korean-speaking school. But we all worshiped together every day, and we all had our meals, our lunchtime, and our dinner time together. Okay? But as you know, right, I spent most of my time with the other English-speaking students.
Yeah.
And that's generally who I ate with, was the people I knew. But one time, for some reason, I ended up being late to lunch. Don't know why. I'm never late. Something must have happened.
I'm
right?
always like, you're not.
Something must have happened for me to be late. So anyway, I come to lunch late, and almost all the tables are filled. The people I usually ate with, all those chairs were filled. But there was one chair empty at a Spanish-speaking group. And they saw me looking around, and they mentioned for me to come and sit with them. So I went and sat with them, and they continued their conversation, which was in Spanish, right? I didn't understand what was going on, so I felt kind of lonely just eating my lunch. But then one of them looked up at me, and she asked, "Do you understand anything we're saying?" I said, "No, I'm afraid not." So at that moment, they all started speaking in English.
Whoa.
They started speaking in English so that I could understand, so that I could be a part of the conversation. And that was just a wonderful, welcoming gesture, right? Because I would not be able to pay them back the same welcoming gesture if they sat at my table and didn't understand English. But so I always remember that welcoming gesture that they made to me in that moment. And it helps to remind me that I'm called to be just as welcoming. The church is called to be just as welcoming. And in this week's lectionary reading that Jordan and I are going to preach on this week, it talks in Matthew about welcome. How Jesus sends the disciples out into the world, not just to welcome others, but be welcomed by others.
Yeah.
And that's hard for us to do sometimes. Sometimes we like to be the welcoming people, and we're uncomfortable being welcomed by others. But until you're welcomed by others, you don't really appreciate what your welcome is doing. So I think that's a powerful thing to do. And I think about, in that context, about our Wednesday night meals. Right? We generally think of ourselves as the welcoming people, of welcoming others into our space, of welcoming them to eat with us. But have you ever thought about how they are welcoming us into their lives? And how gracious we need to be as they welcome us into their lives and into their conversations.
Yeah. So back then with the disciples, like, this was new. This was so new to them. And so they had to be welcomed in. And then if they weren't, they were just like, oh, dust the stuff off your feet and just keep on going. But for us, it's so easy to look at our power and like, I have the power to welcome people in, but I need to also give that power to other people to be able to welcome me in. And we should be able to love people so deeply that they want to welcome you in. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about this scripture this week.
I am too. It's going to be fun to think about and discover, because it reminds us that not only are we Christ's presence to other people, but they are also Christ's presence to us. Sometimes we forget that it goes both ways. So in this week, I invite you to think about how others welcome you into their lives, what it means for you, and what you can take from that to welcome others.
Yes.
Well, peace.
Have a great week.